Earlier this month, a group of private business people, led by developer Homer Williams, announced plans to build a large, privately funded homeless shelter in Portland. Columbia Sportswear CEO Tim Boyle pledged $1.5 million of his own money to the project.
I've been vocal about it. We're concerned about the public safety of our employees who live in Portland, who work in Portland, and if you're going to say something about it, you better do something about it.
This week, we also learned the group is now making a play to turn the vacant Wapato jail into a homeless shelter, a move that has angered some county leaders. Homer Williams joins us tonight to discuss his fight against homelessness in Portland. Also tonight, grassroots candidates are making waves in the Republican primary for Oregon governor. Central Oregon businessman Sam Carpenter joins us to talk about his Make Oregon Great Again campaign. From KGW News, this is Straight Talk with Laurel Porter.
Welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Laurel Porter. Just when you thought Multnomah County's unused Wapato jail had been sold and discussion about it becoming a homeless shelter was over, a new wrinkle and new life for the idea. The developer who bought it for $5 million took on a part owner who wants to give the idea of a homeless shelter at Wapato another chance. The deal would lease Wapato to the nonprofit Harbor of Hope. We'll talk with Harbor of Hope's chairman, Portland developer Homer Williams. And later in the show, there are a record number of candidates in the GOP race for Oregon governor, all hoping to win the chance to challenge the likely Democratic nominee, Governor Kate Brown, in November. We'll meet candidate Ben businessman Sam Carpenter. First, though, the fight against homelessness in Portland. Welcome to my guest, Homer Williams. Welcome to Straight Talk. Your first time here. It's nice to have you here.
Oh, you betcha. Thank you.
We'll talk about the possibility of turning Wapato into a homeless shelter in a moment. But first, you're the chairman of Harbor of Hope. For people unfamiliar, what's it all about? Tell us about it.
Well, the first thing I'd like to do is thank my partner, Dyke Damon, Jim Atkins, and Devin Williams, because if they weren't keeping the boat afloat, I wouldn't be able to be doing all this. Harbor of Hope came from a business trip, actually, that I had a couple of years ago to San Antonio, and I was asked to come down and evaluate a project the city had. There's some proposals. And for the life of me, I don't know why, I was reading the paper and I had about 3 hours before my flight, and I read about this place, Haven for Hope. And so I called the city and said, could I get me in? And I went, and I was just flabbergasted. I mean,
what they were doing there for people who were homeless.
Yes. It was a campus. It had 750 people sleeping on mats. It had 750 people that had decided they wanted to go through treatment, going through treatment. 150 kids were there as their parents were getting help. And they had an incredible success rate, 92%. Once they completed the project, first, and second, if they could get them housing. And so I thought, and that's why I engaged Terminal 1. And
when you went for another idea to have a homeless shelter, and that didn't work out.
And so, it's
but then you were sold on becoming an advocate. Is that how you got involved in being an advocate for the homeless? Because you haven't always been an advocate for the homeless.
No, in fact, not at all. I hadn't thought about it.
Well, you opposed R2D2, right?
Well, I did.
Near the Marriott.
That's
but
right.
You had a change of heart, so why the change of heart?
I think once you get into this, and once you kind of get to know these people individually, I don't know all of them, obviously, they all have a story. We all have a story. Some people have better stories than others. And then you start to try to understand why. And then that leads you to, what can you do? And when I saw what happened at Haven, and what's happened with Bill Russell here, and with You know, I mean, you know, there's a lot of good work being done in Portland, Central City Concern, the county. You know, there is good work being done.
Let's talk about Wapato, what happened there, because you made an offer to the county to buy Wapato for $7 million. They turned it down, so it seemed like the deal was dead. Then they turned around and sold it for $5 million to Kehoe Northwest Properties. Now there's this news this week that you may get to lease Wapato after all. How'd that happen?
Well, the good news is actually Jordan Snitzer bought it.
A friend of yours?
Well, he's well known in Portland. And I've known Jordan for a long, long time, and yes, he is a good friend. And he called me up and said, Homer, I just bought Wapato.
So you didn't know anything about that?
No. And I said, I thought we'd have to negotiate with Kehoe or something like that. I always felt that there was a path somewhere. And he said, take your time. I know you need to do some studies, but we'll work something out that'll be very advantageous if that's what you want to do.
Well, let's look at Wapato. It has 510 beds right now on 18 acres in an industrial area in North Portland. It was built for $58 million by the county for a jail, never used as a jail, and it's been empty since 2004. Commissioner Smith has been the only commissioner who supported the idea of a homeless shelter there. She sees the possibility of the county possibly working with you, while Chair Kafoury is opposed to that idea. So let's listen to what both Commissioner Smith and Chair Kafoury said about the news this week that it might become a shelter.
I totally see that there is a partnership waiting to be had, because we have the technical assistance on how to deal with homeless shelters and people who are vulnerable.
The county has done a feasibility study. We've looked very closely at using it as a shelter, and it just doesn't pencil out.
And you call it a transformational facility rather than a shelter. What about Chair Kafoury saying that the feasibility study that they've done shows that it won't pencil out as a shelter or a transformational facility? What do you think about that?
Well, she may be right. But, you know, we're in different times right now. And we need to be looking and looking again at every possibility. If we had an earthquake here, I'll guarantee you that place would be full, as would dozens of other buildings that nobody would think would be occupied.
Are you going to do your own feasibility study?
Absolutely. And we need to study the cost to open it. We need to get the best ideas for programming for it. And then we have to develop a budget for it.
Where will the money come from?
And that's the fourth leg in the table. And so, but let me tell you, what we're going to go through here is going to take the effort of every citizen, every businessman, every foundation. We are in for a fight like we've never seen before. And so, you know, we're a compassionate city. We know what we need to do. We need to be given paths. We need to engage the faith-based community. They need to go out into the neighborhoods. We're going to have shelters in every neighborhood. Embrace them. Don't fight them.
You talk about business people and average citizens stepping up.
Absolutely.
Tim Boyle, who the Columbia Sportswear CEO, had previously complained about safety issues downtown, had threatened to move Sorrel, his company, out of downtown because his employees felt nervous and scared about some of the people who were homeless downtown. But then he turned around and donated $1.5 million to another project you're involved in that I want to talk about, the Navigation Center. Let's listen to what Tim Boyle had to say when he made that offer.
Well, I think the public safety issues have improved. I know this because our employees are telling us this, but we're not there yet. I mean, you just have to walk around downtown and see the evidence of homelessness, and it needs to be dealt with beyond just a strict public safety issue. If you're going to say something, you better do something. This is really an important area, and you know, we live here. Personally, the company's here, and we really want this to be a place we can be proud of.
Do you see other business people stepping up? Have you had more feedback?
Well, first of all, you got to love that guy.
Absolutely.
And, well, you know, I've said that if you want to complain, step up and complain. That's okay. If you want to just not step up.
That's the president calling.
Oh, it is. If you want to, if you're not stepping up, then frankly, you ought to shut up. Because there's people working very hard. And I'm talking about public employees, people that are working in the Union Gospels and the Blanchet House. There's people doing good work in this city.
And one of the things that you're trying to do is this navigation center that Tim Boyle donated money to. It's 120 beds that'll be constructed in a temporary shelter under the Broadway Bridge.
It's not a shelter, it's a navigation center.
And it looks like this, kind of like a Cirque du Soleil tent. What will the idea about Wapato, how will that affect this? Will you still build a navigation center?
Oh, absolutely.
And that's set for this fall?
Yes.
So
yes.
that going forward with Wapato wouldn't have any effect then on the navigation center?
No. And if the decision was made that Wapato just did not make sense, then we'd be looking at another solution for that. You may have a navigation center, but you have to have a place to navigate to.
What's the difference between a shelter and a navigation center?
A navigation center is where you have people there 24/7. They're there to help. They're there to help them access things that can help them, whether it's money, whether it's medical needs or mental health issues. And where next should they go? Not leave them just fending for themselves. In other words, help them navigate to a better place.
We're almost out of time, but I want to ask you what's next in this whole process? What can we look forward to?
That we're under the radar, getting our work done, and we'll be really excited about talking about what the results are, whatever they are.
If all of your hopes and dreams come true, what will Portland look like?
If we do a better job than other cities, and we're more than capable of it, not only will it be advantageous for businesses wanting to come here, but we're going to feel better as citizens. And, you know, I've gotten more pleasure out of this than, you know, frankly, building any buildings. And I think if people engage, they're really going to like it.
Well, Homer Williams, thank you for joining us, and thank you for all the work that you're doing.
You bet.
When we come back, we'll turn to Oregon governor's race and meet one of the Republican candidates, Sam Carpenter. We're back in 2 minutes.